Most of us dream of escaping the noise of the city for the deep wilderness. And when we pack up the truck, we prep for the obvious dangers: a sudden blizzard, a steep drop-off, or maybe a hungry grizzly bear. Out in the middle of nowhere, those aren't the things that pose the most immediate danger. The absolute greatest threat in an isolated environment is encountering another human being whose behavior is entirely unreadable. Back in civilization, we rely heavily on a constant stream of unspoken social cues. A polite nod on the sidewalk or respecting personal space on a subway provides a sense of security. These invisible behavioral contracts tell us who is safe and who is a threat. Step into a remote forest miles away from cell service, and you enter a vacuum of context. Those societal safety nets evaporate, leaving you with very little information to go on if a stranger approaches your camp in the dark. That sudden chill down your spine is your brain prioritizing survival. Feeling creeped out functions as a highly evolved biological alarm system designed to detect human threats before we can consciously articulate what is wrong. Listening to that primal dread, instead of brushing it off as paranoia, is often the singular dividing line between becoming a tragic news story and making it home alive. Take a driver who was pushing through a cross-country road trip. On night 4, entirely out of cell service on a desolate stretch of road, they spotted someone in the headlights. A woman, dirty and hunched over, frantically waving her arms from the shoulder. A desperate, seemingly injured person activates our immediate instinct to help. It's a powerful psychological pull, and it was strong enough to convince the driver to stop the car, leave the engine running, and step out into the pitch-black tree line to look for her. As the driver stepped into the woods, the figure moved out of the shadows. But the closer they got, the less sense the image made. The person was exceptionally tall, at least 6'2", with a masculine face that didn't match the voice. Every physical proportion felt slightly but terrifyingly wrong. This line graph maps out the uncanny valley. As an entity looks increasingly human, our comfort level with it rises. But right before it hits a perfect human likeness, there is a sharp drop in affinity. The brain reacts with revulsion toward things that look almost human but harbor a structural anomaly. When your eyes take in a visual mismatch, like a frail voice coming from a towering, mismatched body, your subconscious flags it as a biological anomaly. It bypasses your social desire to help and initiates an immediate flight response. The driver immediately turned and sprinted back to the car. When extreme visual wrongness occurs in total isolation, your subconscious has identified a physical threat hiding in plain sight before your conscious mind even has the vocabulary to explain it. Far from a deserted highway, a solo hunter was using a tiny one-room public wood shelter as a base camp. 3 hours after sundown, the door swung open and 2 men walked in. In backcountry culture, there is a standard social script. You say hello, acknowledge the shared space, and settle in. These men bypassed all of that. They set their gear 3 feet from the hunter's bed and sat down in unbroken silence. They refused to say a single word. In a cramped room deep in the woods, total silence from an uninvited guest is an aggressive act. Refusing to speak removes all behavioral cues, creating a method of building psychological pressure in an enclosed environment. After managing to fall asleep, personal space. At this distance, the brain stops trying to rationalize the social awkwardness and shifts entirely into survival mode, recognizing that every barrier between you and a potential threat has been removed while you slept. The hunter grabbed his rifle and fled 4 miles into the dark night. When strangers deliberately strip away all expected social scripts in an isolated setting, they are loudly broadcasting predatory intent, confirming the danger is already inside the room. You can also encounter a threat that smiles right at you. An isolated truck camper in East Idaho was enjoying a fire when a man walked up out of the dark. They shared a beer, had a pleasant chat, and the man casually mentioned he was camping just a bit further down the trail. The next morning, the camper took a walk to stretch his legs. He found that the trail ended at a dirt turnaround surrounded by impassable forest. There was no other truck and no other campsite. The man's entire presence was based on a lie. That evening, the man returned. When the camper mentioned finding a dead end with no campsite, the man's friendly smile vanished. His face went rigid, and in a terrifyingly calm voice he asked, "What else did you see out there?" These two circles represent the clash between the man's friendly behavior and the reality of his deception. When a smile is paired with a proven lie, it creates a psychological friction that the brain interprets as a warning of hidden danger. The man then insisted on showing the camper his non-existent sight, attempting to lure him into the dark. The camper refused, packed his truck in a panic, and sped off. As his headlights swept across the area, they illuminated the man standing perfectly still, holding an unknown object. When a friendly mask slips to reveal a calculated lure, the psychological tension breaks. This realization signals that the person across the fire has stopped treating you as a fellow camper and has begun treating you as a target. In all three of these encounters, the individuals made it out alive because they made a specific conscious choice. They stopped rationalizing the situation, stopped trying to be helpful, and they ran. We spend our lives conditioned to be polite and look for logical explanations before we act. We don't want to seem rude or paranoid or unhelpful. But taking the time to satisfy those social rules while out in the deep wilderness becomes a fatal vulnerability. If you are miles away from help and your gut tells you something about another person is dangerously off, do not wait for logical proof. Polite behavior will get you killed, but trusting your primal dread will get you home.